right, good morning to you, Grenada and the rest of the world. Today, the 23rd day of October, 2019. I'm George Grant saying thanks for joining us for today's edition of Good Day Grenada. As always, got some interesting stuff for you lined up over the next hour or so, and we hope you can make it. But if you are not able to, always remember that you can go on back to either GRENADABROADCAST.com, Facebook Live, who's the other one? YouTube. Check it out at your leisure. I see that she's up there on the monitor already this morning. She's actually in Grenada, by the way, but she's going to be joining us electronically this morning, and we'll tell you who she is in just a wee bit, as if you didn't know. It's Wednesday morning. Come on, guys. Right now, though, let's get into the rundown for today's edition. We have an opinion piece which I published only last night on the GrenadaBroadcast.com website. It's the weekly feature from the National Democratic Congress, and this one is titled, "The Formula of One Mathematician." The formula of one mathematician. What's that all about? You're not going to have to wait too long. You'll find out. I also have another piece which we also published on GrenadaBroadcast.com yesterday. And this one came from a journalist whom you all know, Beverly Sinclair. Yeah, Beverly has taken on the issue of child abuse and sexual abuse and abuse of women and all of that in this country. And she wrote a really nice little piece, which we're going to share with you as well. And then we get to the National Report from your Government Information Service. Now, that is your rundown, okay? Let me say good morning to the pilgrims who have started lining up. First again this morning, yeah, she's become a fixture. We're talking Hazel Ferguson. Chester Simon is second. He's creeping up one of these days. Anthea Rello is saying good morning. So is Sawandi Fabio Sam, Fitzroy James, Peter Bishop, Osmond Lewis, and even Mags there. Mags is saying, hope everyone is up to their usual tricks. The good tricks, that is. Yes, sirree. Mags, with you in the house, we know that they're going to be kept in order. Yeah, you know. So Bernard Gilbert's also sneaking in, and there you have it. That's your lineup for this morning's edition of Good Day Grenada. Now, let we get down to business, okay? We are going to begin with the NDC heartbeat for this week. During the NDC's term of 1990 to 1995, Grenada embarked on its only successful structural adjustment program, which was totally homegrown. That effort was led by then Finance Minister George Prezan and his technical team, which included the Honorable Anthony Boson and Mr. Richard Duncan. Under that program, Grenada moved from being debt-ridden and on the blacklist to having a AAA credit rating, and that was back in 1995. Keith Mitchell, on assuming office in June of 1995, immediately set out squandering the gains of that program. He went on a spending spree, dishing out sovereign guarantees to crooked pseudo investors like E.J. Miller and Victor Kozeny, and to dubious ventures like the Garden Group Limited and the ill-fated chicken farm in Victoria. Soon, Grenada's national debt ballooned from $372 million in 1995 to $2 billion in in 2008 when the NDC assumed office. Painfully, our people had nothing sustainable to show for this. In the midst of the worst global economic crisis since the Great Depression of 1929, the new NDC administration in 2008 inherited a depressed and highly indebted economy, despite the propaganda spewed by Mitchell and his surrogates. The NDC under Tillman Thomas was able to stabilize the economy and manage our debt servicing to the extent that on the 20th of September 2011, Finance Minister Nazem Burke signed agreements with the World Bank under which Grenada received funding for its single largest project approval ever. Over $70 million was received and allocated to infrastructure and rehabilitative projects, including the Lance and Hubbard Bridges, Holy Cross and St. Patrick's Anglican Schools, the Hillsview and Cardrona Homes for the Aged, Sendo Tunnel and River Road rockfall mitigation. Over $13 million were spent on social safety net programs like public assistance for the elderly and transportation for students. Almost $8 million were allocated to the energy sector. For all of his empty boasts, Mitchell has not been able to attract this kind of trust and confidence from outside lenders and donors. In fact, in every budget presentation since 2013, the figures show that actual revenues from grants have fallen way below estimates. Government's reaction to this failure has been to raise revenue by overtaxation. Mitchell at one time said that a government whose main source of revenue is taxation is following a stupid philosophy. This is exactly what he's doing, because between 2013 and 2017, there were 32 new and increased taxes, duties, and fees, and no sustainable, productive initiatives. Just as we thought we were going to be relieved from the austerity measures, we are now faced with higher property taxes, higher costs for passports, higher NIS contributions, and soon, higher VAT. At the same time, salaries have not moved in years. The result is that people's spending power is significantly constricted. Meanwhile, Mitchell continues to skew the figures to give false impressions. The latest report of the Fiscal Responsibility Oversight Committee clearly exposes this fact. When stating the national debt, he deliberately omits debts of state-owned entities. When stating the overall surplus, he deliberately omits monies paid as interest on loans. If the figures are honestly presented and analyzed, they will show that we are performing worse each year. The figures show that between January and June of 2019, the Customs Department collected $2 million less than it did for the same period last year. And Inland Revenue Department collected $3.1 million less in the same period. At the same time, the amount received in grants was $56 million less than expected. These statistics confirm that it is indeed a stupid philosophy to rely on taxes as the main source of revenue. Yet, there is no indication that government intends to do anything to boost real production and spur economic activity in the country. Another boast of government is reduction in expenditure. That means government is spending less. Between January and June 2019, expenditure was recorded at $69.5 million less than budgeted. If our economic situation is as healthy as government claims, how come then there are so many deficiencies and hardships in the areas of education, healthcare, workers' emoluments, and infrastructure? The answer lies in the reduced spending. The evidence is clear that Mitchell is prepared to spend less and sacrifice the well-being of the people in order to boast of favorable figures and to build his election war chest with our money. Our roads are in a deplorable state, while the Inland Revenue Department is collecting duties from the importation of tires and spare parts. More pressure. The healthcare sector is in a free fall with an exodus of nurses and doctors, while expired medicine is being administered to patients at our hospitals. Schools like Bishop College, both of the TAMCC campuses, the St. David's Catholic Secondary School, and many others are in abject disrepair. Others, like the GBSS, lack of decent furniture for students. The free school books program is now destroyed, while parents are being asked to pay school fees at the beginning of each school term. All of the above conditions exist while government boasts the brazen lie, even in the throne speech, that Grenada has the fastest growing economy in the region. The truth is that this Mitchell government is inept. To mask this ineptitude, they are prepared to cook the figures, mislead, and sacrifice the well-being of the nation by refusing to spend in critical areas. The Grenadian people are already onto them. Their time with the tomfoolery is up. Once again, pilgrims, you can check that piece out. It's on the GrenadaBroadcast.com website, and that's the NDC's heartbeat for this week. Just before we get too far behind here, let me get back here and say good morning to these folks here. Charmaine DeLille is sending her blessings. John says good morning to Gigi of the world from Dependency Number 1 on this warm and wonderful Wednesday. And then, I haven't seen this one before. Nike, N-Y-K-I-E, Nike D. Alexander saying good morning. Yolan Price, good morning to you, Yolan. Jean Pascal. Yeah, Jean Pascal, I think that's it. Arthur Langine is saying good morning. John says, and the country's true figures were presented. If the country's true figures were presented, the IMF would have to run to the hills faster than Granny James. Yeah, you never know, John. And Michelle Forsyth is also saying good morning. Now. Promise you a little piece from our friend there, Sherron Roberts. And just let me, this piece is titled, Sow to the Wind, Reap the Whirlwind. This is from Beverly Sinclair. Did I say Sherron Roberts? I did. Hello, George. It's kind of hot in here. I have the air conditioning turned off because of the noise it's creating. Listen to this. And yeah, so here comes Beverly's piece. So there is the usual outrage and outcry because another pedophile has been pardoned by the state. But this is just another element of the systemic abuse which pervades Grenada. It is clear that there is institutionalized abuse in this country. Abuse of women, children, and institutions. When evidence of the systemic abuse rears its ugly head, when women are physically and verbally assaulted publicly by high-ranking persons, civil groups are silent because of who is involved. Women come out and declare that other women deserve the abuse meted out to them. Small children and young girls are blamed for being victims of abuse. And when those in positions of leadership and authority abuse state institutions and break the law for personal reasons, it is accepted. So, why does the society believe that, as a whole, it can embrace and condone abuse, then expect the justice system, which is made up of these same silent consenters, to throw the book at one pedophile? The reaction should be that there is no surprise in the judgment, because abuse is not taken seriously in the Grenadian society. The victims are not considered in the vicious cycle of abuse. It is usually about aesthetics and protecting the image and reputation of the offender or those associated with the offender. How many child molesters have gone through the courts with a slap on the wrist? How many of these pedophiles have been excused and justified in their actions? How many women have been knocked down and beaten without any outrage from the society? How many state institutions have been used and abused without a murmur from the civic-minded? We only reap what we sow. And this latest so-called sentencing from the court is just another bitter pill to swallow. The medicine will continue to be bitter until the hypocrisy in child protection is exposed for what it is. The medicine will be bitter until elected women in the parliament are more than window dressing and themselves objects of abuse. We saw the disrespect of a senior female member of parliament by her male junior counterpart and an unelected senator who used machoism to usurp the female MP. In the process, he had a female journalist on the floor being verbally abused with words to the effect that she's a liar and has an evil spirit. The female MP did not assert her position. Her female counterpart, who was there, reportedly saw the whole incident as a joke. And the female press secretary was also not disturbed by the abuse of a woman before her very eyes. Was there any public outcry from people or institutions that are supposed to protect and defend women and children from abuse? Even the media went silent on this incident, and refuse to report that it even happened. With this type of indifference from women in positions of leadership and authority, who will advocate for the innocent children who are left voiceless and helpless? Since 2003, there has been a steady increase in the number of women in Grenada's parliament. But this increase in numbers has not manifested itself in better or more robust representation and advocacy for the protection of women and children, and for laws that would deal seriously with an offender when brought to the court. There was an act in the Parliament since 2012 to amend some of these laws and to include stiffer penalties. But 7 years later, is it still an act? Until the society rejects institutionalized abuse of women and children at all levels and in all forms, pedophiles will be handled with cushioned gloves, and abusers will be defended and protected. There cannot be convenient outcry, but general acceptance of abuse when even those who should be on the side of the law declare that victims deserve what they get, depending on who the victim is and who the abuser is. If women in positions of leadership and authority cannot use or fail to use their positions to bring pressure on the authorities for the protection of their own and the protection of children, then they are useless to the society and nothing but props for their male counterparts. It is time to see abuse in all its forms for what it is. Expose it and be intolerant of it. As long as the society continues to give silent and selective support to abuse, the courts will continue to hand down sentences that also give tacit support. It is up to us, the people, to advocate for the change necessary. But that will never be accomplished with hypocrisy. With the reaction to this $2,100 sentence for a pedophile, $1,500 for the state and $600 for counseling for the victim. Let's hope that consciousness will be awakened and that there will be a real move to deal with the systemic abuse that is eating away at the core of our society. Thank you, Beverly Sinclair from Island Media. And by the way, on her behalf, I'm going to extend an invitation to join us tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, every Thursday night, right here on this platform for this week's edition of We Chat. All right, let's get back here. Benedict Cador says, wonderful Wednesday. Paul Richards says, good morning from Virginia. Hello, Paul. John says, I'm very surprised the offenders aren't dealt with by the family or friends of the victims. Not saying it's right to do so, but it will happen sometime. He also says these 7 women in power now so have no connection. These 7 women are in power now, so they have no connection with the public anymore. All right, oh my God, 25 minutes after the hour, whoosh. Break time, and then we're going to get back here to Sherron.
Because your vehicle is a necessity, being roadworthy is critical. Hubbard's Motor Department introduces its new tire and battery sales and service outlet located at Building Supplies Compound in Grand Dance, close to the Sugar Mill Roundabout. Available are a wide range of competitively priced tires, maintenance-free batteries, oils and lubricants. Keeping in mind your busy schedule, this outlet is equipped to provide you with fast and reliable service. Simply drive in and you'll be delighted with your service experience. For more information, contact 440-2087. Hubbard's, quality service, affordable prices.
I'm always on the move. Training, traveling, competing. So it's good to know I have Quad Bank in the palm of my hand.
Introducing e-banking, one of many customer convenience services from Grenada Cooperative Bank. And there's more to come.
It's swift, simple, and secure.
Welcome home.
You don't know how many hurricanes will be coming this season, so you need to be prepared. At Hubbard's Hardware and Building Supply Departments and Food Fair Supermarkets, everything from canned foods, flashlights and batteries, to plywood, tarpaulin, lanterns, roof repair kits, water tanks, etc. are available. For over 90 years, we've helped you prepare for and recover from storms. Hubbard's Hardware, Food Fair Supermarkets, and the Grenadian General Insurance, an integral part of your hurricane preparedness plan.
Hey, what? I just came from the land and this sign here caught my eye. What's that sign about?
Someone must have asked Grenlec to move a pole. But you know, there's no space reserved on the side of the road for planting poles. So Grenlec has to get permission from landowners, and that can take a lot of time.
Oh, Grenlec asked me to help them contact my neighbor Ben about planting a pole on his land. But Ben passed away. His children own the land, but they all live abroad.
That's why Grenlec needs customers to inform them in writing at least 3 months in advance.
3 months? All that?
It seems like a lot, but think about the time it will take for Grenlec to find and get permission from all of Ben's children. And sometimes moving one pole requires you to move the pole before, the one after, plus the wires that support them on the ground. That means even more landowners to find and get permission from. Then Grenlec needs to schedule their teams and notify customers about any power outages.
Well, I need the pole on the farm moved, so I'm going to write Grenlec a letter now.
Grenlec, energizing our Grenada.
Alrighty, folks, you can obviously tell that there are a few loose nuts and bolts up here this morning. A little while ago, I referred to Beverly Sinclair as Sherron Roberts. And then just before I went to that break, I was saying that we're going to come back with Sherron. We're not going to come back with Sherron. We're going to go to the GIS. However, yes, it's cutting into her time, but Sherron has all the time she wants. We'll get to her in just a wee bit. Margaret responds to John here. John was saying, I'm very surprised that offenders aren't dealt with by the family or friends of the victims. Not saying it's right to do so, but it will happen. Well, Margaret responded by saying, John, it's highly likely that monkey hasn't climbed the right tree yet. I know for sure in my family, nothing less will be accepted. And then John responds by saying, Margaret, I know if it was a family member of mine, the monkey wouldn't be coming down that tree with any nuts. I guess he's talking about a coconut tree, okay? GIS.
Government negotiating team committed to resolving wage dispute with TAU and PWU. Details to this story and more in the National Report. With the details to the news for Tuesday, October 22nd, I am Leslie Ann Johnson. The government negotiating team has pledged its commitment to resolving the current dispute with the Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union and the Public Workers Union over wage increases for public officers. However, the GNT says if any progress is to be made around the table with labor unions, there is need for a conciliator to bring the parties closer together, given the great disparity between the government's offer and the union's demand. During a press conference immediately following the post-cabinet press briefing on Tuesday, head of the GNT, the Honorable Oliver Joseph, reiterated that they are prepared to consider any, quote, reasonable and justifiable demand by the union, unquote. The unions have only slightly dropped their demands for salary increases for public officers from $90.5 million to $89 million, while the government is offering $26.6 million, taking into consideration government's commitments to other sectors of the population. Minister Joseph says it must be borne in mind that negotiations will be conducted differently under the fiscal responsibility legislation.
The union said they do not recognize the deadlock. Well, under the labor law, the other side do not have to agree. And there was clearly no movement, so there is deadlock. No movement, you declare deadlock. So if you have to wait for the other side, either party, to agree, then it will be difficult for anyone to declare deadlock, because all the other party have to say is that we do not agree. So the argument that they do not agree, and the letter to me that we could go back around the table, when the matter is before the Labour Commissioner, when we indicated that we were prepared to go to conciliation and there look at fresh proposal, and they have refused to attend the both meetings, even when the Labour Commissioner rescheduled a meeting, they wrote a letter saying they're not available between the 21st to the 24th. But they wanted to meet with the GNT on the 22nd. But if they're not available to meet with the Labour Commissioner, how come they are available to meet with the GNT? So the matter will, before the Labour Commissioner, he will decide whether the matter should go to mediation if there is no, if the parties are not prepared to meet. Well, we attended all the meetings and they have not showed up.
Cabinet Secretary Mrs. Beryl Isaac says the union's proposal, which will cost the government $89 million, will breach the primary expenditure rule, and as part of the fiscal responsibility legislation, government cannot incur expenditure of more than 2% on the previous year.
Government has to pay increments, $2 million. They are about to make the advance payment to pensioners who are eligible pensioners. Regularization, we have the continued regularization of teachers, we have nurses, we have pharmacists, doctors, all of that is in the work.
She says with the enactment of the fiscal responsibility law, the processes and procedures for negotiations have changed.
Under the FRL, we know that there's no longer going to be any back pay. Negotiations have to be forward-looking, so that whatever is agreed to will be budgeted for in the next cycle. So if we have to agree in 2019 so that the budget could be included in the 2020 estimates of revenue and expenditure.
The Cabinet Secretary says they want to conclude negotiations by October 31st so that provisions can be made in the 2020 budget, which will be read in November. The government's negotiating team met Tuesday with the Grenada Union of Teachers to discuss wage increases for teachers for the contract cycle 2020 to 2022. The negotiations were cordial and there was movement from both sides with respect to the demand being made by the union and the offer presented by the government negotiating team. The flexibility of the parties demonstrates a willingness to reach a settlement at the earliest opportunity. The next round of negotiations will be held on Thursday, October 24th. The duty represents about 1,500 teachers across the country. In other news, Grenada is now a part of the OECS Regional Health Association. On Tuesday, the Ministry of Health, the Caribbean Public Health Agency CARPHA, and the World Bank signed the agreement for the $30.6 million funded project throughout the OECS. The Regional Health Project will serve to mitigate the effects of climate change, build capacity, strengthen the surveillance system, and boost recovery and response. Speaking during the launch of the project, Health Minister the Honorable Nicholas Steele expressed optimism that the multi-million-dollar project throughout the OECS will strengthen the resilience of the health system. The project will run for 5 years.
As people in SIDS, we have had the collective experience of devastating impacts of extreme weather events, including Hurricane Ivan in 2004 in Grenada, Maria in Dominica in 2015, and most recently Hurricane Dorian in Bahamas only a few short weeks ago. We also will know the devastating impacts of chikungunya and Zika outbreaks in the region in 2016 and 2017, and the debilitating personal, social, and economic burdens placed on the people of the region as a result of these extreme events. Collective efforts will ensure that as SIDS, the people of the Caribbean are better prepared to respond to climate change and to help shape the future of the next generation.
Minister Steele says $6 million have been allocated for the Grenada project, which will see improvements in 4 key sites in St. George's, St. David, and St. Patrick.
Infrastructure work is planned at 4 sites in Grenada, the Mount Gay Psychiatric Hospital, to ensure the facilities are available for the care of vulnerable members of our citizenry, especially geriatrics and children. The Saterres Health Center, the St. David's Health Center, which continues the smarting initiatives in previous projects, and the General Hospital, the ICU operating theater. The infrastructure and operations of the public health laboratory at the General Hospital will be enhanced. Support will be provided for the health emergency planning and operations. Opportunities will be provided through training to enhance the skills and competencies of staff to support the project implementation, and to sustain the long-term benefits resulting from the project intervention.
World Bank representative Michel Gragnolati commended the region on taking this bold step to initiate such an investment in the health sector.
It is the first World Bank regional health project in the Caribbean. It is the first project to follow climate-resilient infrastructure in the context of health facilities. And it is the first and the only to leverage funds from a regional facility that IDA 18 provides. Said in other words, it means that you, by working as a region, have been able to access much more concessional financing than you would if you had worked only as individual countries.
So far, only 4 countries, including Grenada, have signed on to the project's agreement. Partnering countries will spend the next 2 days in Grenada, charting the way forward for the OECS project. This is the National Report. More news after the break.
Grenada, it's coming as the Ministry of Youth, Development, Sports, Culture and the Arts brings to you National Youth Week 2019 and it's 1 full week of activities, vibes and action as the nation turns their attention on the nation's youth, and it's from Saturday, October 19 till Saturday, November 2nd under the theme Embracing Opportunities, Sowing Higher. October 19th and 20th, National Community Service Weekend, island-wide. October 26th, Health Walk and Ministers Address. October 28th, Youth Vibe. October 29th, St. John's Youth Parliament. October 30th, Job Fair and Career Day. October 31st, Fun Nights. November 1st, Discovering Talents and Expo. November 2nd, it's National Youth Award. Sunday, November 3rd, Ecumenical Service and Peace Concert. So urging everyone to be a part of Youth Week 2019, October 19th to November 2nd.
Continuing the news, the government of Grenada says tackling the backlog of cases will be given priority when court operations begin in earnest next week. Following the completion of retrofitting work on the Clico building on Young Street, the functioning of one of the courts was tested this week. During Tuesday's post-cabinet press briefing, Attorney General Darshan Ramdani said the immediate task is to meaningfully tackle the backlog of cases that are before the high courts. He's confident that with the full complement of 4 judges, this will make a significant contribution to the reduction in the backlog.
Court lists are being generated, and they will advise the public of sittings in a new building, and those will be out shortly. Our chambers, the Attorney General's chambers, will continue to be ready and to provide all support as we have been doing over the years. And I'm sure the bar will be also ready, all of the stakeholders will be ready to get right back into it and to get the work of the dispensation of justice on its way. That being said, it would be remiss of me not to express our own gratitude for the support the Minister and the Ministry of Legal Affairs, my own office, has received from all stakeholders to return us to where we are. I must also express gratitude to those judges who during this last year has worked tirelessly in less than ideal and often challenging circumstances to get the job done.
The retrofitted facility was officially handed over to government on Monday. It houses 4 courts, 2 civil and 2 criminal, along with administrative offices.
The building was handed over to the government as being ready for court use. Yesterday, there was a test run in one of the criminal courts dealing with real court matters. Members of the public were present. This test run revealed that a few adjustments had to be made, and those are being presently carried out. For the civil courts, furniture is right now being carried across from the temporary court facilities which were at the Parliament building, as you all may know. I am advised by the Registrar of the Supreme Court that all of the court facilities will be ready for work on Monday. I must point out here that of the 4 judges assigned to Grenada, 2 are presently off island. One is to return this month end, and the other, who is on assignment in Antigua, will return mid next month.
In another development, Grenada's Attorney General Darshan Ramdani says given the appeal filed by the Commissioner of Police to challenge the inadequacy of a sentence meted out in a recent sexual assault case involving a minor, there is still a possibility for a custodial sentence to be imposed. At Tuesday's post-cabinet press briefing, the Attorney General said it will be one of the options available to the appeal court when it hears the matter. If the sentence of a $1,500 fine payable to the state and $600 in compensation to the family is deemed inappropriate, the appeal court can throw this out and impose a sentence of imprisonment. Allaying fears that the departure of the perpetrator from the country will affect legal recourse after the appeal is heard, Mr. Ramdani said if he does not return voluntarily, the extradition process can be used. The Attorney General noted that the recent sentence has led to questions about the adequacy of Grenada's laws and the penalties imposed. Referencing the amendments made in 2012, which increased the penalties for most sexual offences following consultations with all stakeholders, Mr. Ramdani said the revision of legislation is a continuous process and noted that the AG's office and the Ministry of Legal Affairs have been continuously working on a number of amendments for several months.
The AG's office and the Minister of Legal Affairs have made conscious decisions to continuously assess our current laws. Right now, we are working on those aspects of laws which relates to the protection of vulnerable witnesses at trial so that victims can be safeguarded during the trial process. We are also looking at amendments to remove corroboration requirements for young children. As the law currently stands, if all the evidence and the only evidence against an alleged offender is the evidence of a child of tender years, then unless that man pleads guilty, it would be virtually impossible to convict him. One view which is being considered is that the possibility must exist for a conviction to flow from such evidence, that is, just the oral evidence of the child without any independent corroborating evidence.
The Attorney General is encouraging persons to get familiar with the provisions of the law. Making specific reference to members of the media and social commentators, he said that is driving public discussions. These individuals must research the facts, comment responsibly, and always seek to educate the public. He said it is important to appreciate the fact that significant work has been done legislatively, and Grenada is a leader in the region in this regard on many fronts.
The stakeholders are at work and in tandem. The police force has its special victims unit, which is expected to be engaged on every sexual allegation in the country so that protocols which have been established may be employed. Those, and the most important one of these, of course, is ensuring that where a child is involved, that the Child Protection Authority is involved in the earliest stages of the matter. If I might at this point remind all that the 2012 amendments actually added a legal obligation on parents and guardians who suspect legal abuse of their children or their ward. This obligation requires them to report their suspicion to the police. Failure to do so, the law actually punishes it by a term of imprisonment.
And that's the National Report. I'm Leslie Ann Johnson.
Because your vehicle is a necessity, being roadworthy is critical. Hubbard's Motor Department introduces its new tire and battery sales and service outlet located at Building Supplies Compound in Grand Anse, close to the Sugar Mill Roundabout. Available are a wide range of competitively priced tires, maintenance-free batteries, oils and lubricants. Keeping in mind your busy schedule, this outlet is equipped to provide you with fast and reliable service. Simply drive in and you'll be delighted with your service experience. For more information, contact 440-2087. Hubbard's, quality service, affordable prices.
Hey, what? I just came from the land and this sign here caught my eye. What's that sign about?
Someone must have asked Grenlec to move a pole. But you know, there's no space reserved on the side of the road for planting poles. So Grenlec has to get permission from landowners, and that can take a lot of time.
Oh, Grenlec asked me to help them contact my neighbor Ben about planting a pole on his land. But Ben passed away. His children own the land, but they all live abroad.
That's why Grenlec needs customers to inform them in writing at least 3 months in advance.
3 months? All that?
It seems like a lot, but think about the time it will take for Grenlec to find and get permission from all of Ben's children. And sometimes moving one pole requires you to move the pole before, the one after, plus the wires that support them on the ground. That means even more landowners to find and get permission from. Then Grenlec needs to schedule their teams and notify customers about any power outages.
Well, I need the pole on the farm moved, so I'm going to write Grenlec a letter now.
Grenlec, energizing our Grenada.
Alrighty, folks, I hope you can hear me now. I hope you can hear me now. Everybody in the class, if you can hear me, put your hands up real high, real high, real high. Sherron, I'm looking at you. Put your hands up real high, real high. I hope you can hear me right now, everybody. Okay, I'm assuming that you guys can hear me right now. Don't know what happened there, but it happened. So what I was doing was I was reading some of the comments that came in after or during the GIS report. And just so that you don't miss anything, I'm going to just repeat them here for you. Sherron, don't worry, you got all the time in the world that you need. John says, regarding the story with Oliver Joseph, John says, Mr. Joseph spins a good tale, thinking we believe him. Okay, John. There was also a story which ended with a quote. So far, only 4 countries have signed on. Well, Michelle Forsyth took that one on. Michelle says here, why? She wants to know why only 4 countries have signed on. She says, if it was important enough to be stated, why no further information? Then Fitzroy Adams was asking the question. He says, what I cannot understand, the government gave themselves 10% increase and are offering public workers 1%. Isn't that a slap in the face? It's either you take it or leave it. What a shame. So says Fitzroy. Then Sherron from home chimed in and said, if the country is doing so well, then the government should give the workers 10%, and if they, meaning the government, have to get an increase, they, the government, should get 1%. Sherron, do holding me breath, girl. Wishful thinking. And then everybody starts complaining, the audio gone, audio gone, audio gone. Then, okay, I think everybody's hearing us now. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Okay, yes, everybody's back, everybody's back. Margaret says, Gigi, my neighbor in New York, want to know if he deaf or if you're miming. Tell him for me, please, Mags. He's not deaf. He's not deaf. And I'm not miming. And Benedict Cador says, hands up. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm glad you guys have a sense of humor. Yeah. John says that was a big senior moment. Okay, guys, I'll tell you what. We're back. We're back. So right now, take a look. There she is. Good morning, Sherron.
Morning, George.
All right.
Morning,
Now,
everybody.
I'm sure you're obviously hearing me now, but I am not hearing you simply because I haven't got my earplugs plugged in. So, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, but not 100%.
I, I have a note here to begin the conversation with you this morning. How is your saddle working?
Pretty good, but I didn't think they allow for the potholes. I took a drive yesterday. My nephew was driving me yesterday,
Yeah.
and I felt every pothole.
Oh, yeah.
The thing is, you try to get away from one, and you end up in another one.
Sometimes these things take a little while to help, and yes, I agree with you. The potholes in those places don't help any. So,
yeah. But I'm good considering everything else. As a matter of fact, some time ago I'd seen Dr. Dragon, and he asked me, "How did you walk into this office?" I said, "By putting one foot in front of the other." He said, "No, from what I'm seeing on this x-ray, you should be in a lot of pain." It turns out that I have a very high pain threshold because the doctor in Fort Lauderdale said the same thing. Based on what she's seen on the MRI report, I'm not supposed to be smiling. But say what? Life goes on, and I have life, so I make do with the best I have.
You know, girl, it looks like both you and I are falling apart. You know, you heard about the fall that I had down Market Hill last week. Well, let me tell you, my right knee is giving me beans. And I'm not just talking about, there are a couple of bruises on the knee, you know, they have sort of dried up. But I'm starting to think that maybe some damage may have been done to the cartilage or the bone or something in there because that knee is hurting. It's hurting bad. But you know what? This too shall pass. We will survive.
Exactly. And we have bigger problems in Grenada. Now, last night I was looking on Facebook and saw a discussion about corporal punishment. And now I meant to address that this morning, and then you read Beverly's bit.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people in Grenada do not agree with me when I say they need to stop this corporal punishment and hitting people, children in school. Now, I have a very, very good reason for that. I have a son who is very quiet. That's just his personality. And I remember when I lived in Pittermartinic, one day, some kids came running to me, said, "Teacher hit Chester, teacher beat Chester." I said, "For what?" Because that child is so quiet and he don't bother anybody. So I went to find out what happened. It turned out that she hit him because he didn't speak loudly enough. And she asked him to speak up after hitting him. And of course, he was crying. And then she hit him again for crying. And if you know your girl, I went ballistic. At the time, I was president of the PTA, and they had a meeting that evening, and I went crazy. And one of the reasons, it was an election year, the teacher did not support the party that I supported and decided to take it out on my child. And I tell them in no uncertain terms, if anybody hit any of my children, I will kill them. They never hit them again, you know? And I think they have to stop this nonsense. You talking, I listened to Beverly's piece, very interesting, very good. But if you're beating your children, you are giving people permission to beat them. Abuse in any form is abuse. I told somebody once, I said, when you hit your daughter, you as a father who's supposed to love this child, and you're beating her. She think her husband's supposed to beat her too if he love her.
Yeah.
And where will it stop? We have to stop this nonsense. And those, I don't know, reprobates that feel they could abuse little children sexually and otherwise, somebody need to deal with them. And if the law won't deal with them, and you know, I said already, and I said sometime last week, I asked, you remember we had a judge named Benjamin. I forget his first name. And this case, when the guy raped a little 7-year-old neighbor and ruptured her inside, that they had to take her away and at 7 years have a hysterectomy. You know how bad this child was damaged. And he got 3 years or something silly in prison. He was released and moved back next door where he was terrorizing the family. And I asked the judge, I said, not because you don't have girl children. I said, how you could give a judgment like that? He said, as a judge, he had to base it on the case that the police brought to him. And if they did not bring a case of rape, he cannot take it unto himself and charge the man for rape. If I remember well, the penalty for rape is 30 years imprisonment. How many people has ever been found guilty and got their 30 years? None. Because we have some lawyers who fighting and say is the right of the person to be defended. All of them need jail. All of them need jail. And until some parent go crazy and do what they're doing in America and shoot all of them, then you wouldn't hear why you violate a 5-year-old and you get away to fly away out of the country if you're out of the country at all? That is nonsense. I am so mad. I am so mad.
You know, Sherron, a couple of things. First of all, I hear what you're talking about, you know, beating children. And yes, I am very aware of the abuse a lot of parents put their kids through in this place. I am very thankful that in my childhood, I can only recall ever receiving one licking. And in retrospect, I deserved every blow that I got. Maybe at the end of the program, I'm going to try and lighten things up a little bit by telling you what that entailed. But yes, it's sad. And it's not just regarding child abuse and sexual abuse in this country, but our legal system just seems to have gone to hell in a handbasket. I don't know if we're hearing more about it now, and that's why there's a sort of outcry building, but yes, things are not hunky-dory in this place. Sorry.
I don't know what to say.
Well, hold on a sec here. Hold on. Margaret says, yeah, Sherron, quite familiar with those kind of punishments. They would beat you if you got the answer wrong. And
exactly.
And some of these teachers were brutal. I always said if I had kids, I would kill one of them. Thankfully, I don't have to, and I hope none of us resort to killing anybody, a teacher or whomever. I really hope so. But I do understand your outrage. I mean, it's just too obvious. Let's see here. Sonia Mafflin Scott has joined us from New York. And go ahead, Sherron, what you're saying.
I was about to say, unfortunately, it's not only in Grenada, eh?
Yep.
This whole thing is widespread. We have an incident in Belize where a teacher used a strap on my grandson because she's speaking too posh. He's showing off because he doesn't have a Belizean accent. Well, his father speaks proper English. And you know, he could speak Creole when he chooses to speak Creole. But in school, I remember teaching in Belize and we were told, in class, the children have to speak proper English. You speak Creole on the playing ground with your friends, but in classroom, you should speak proper English. And a teacher hitting that little boy because he's showing off by speaking proper English. Well, I thought my sons were bad, but they're not bad because I would go there and deal with them. But instead, they said, okay, you soon leave that school.
Are you?
So we have.
Pardon me?
I said we have that nonsense everywhere.
I don't know if you saw the post-cabinet briefing with the Attorney General, Darshan Ramdani, yesterday, where they're promising, you know, that they're going to review the legislation, and they're asking the public who have been sort of passing judgments on the ruling to sort of cool it, if you will, you know, and try and get the facts before you pass judgment and so on. Did you see that briefing, or did you hear about it?
I heard about it, but I didn't. I heard some of it of what he was saying, but I so mentally turn off when they start speaking their nonsense that I really have to start listening.
But and generally it's stuff that you've heard before, promise after promise after promise.
Of course.
Yeah. All right.
You know.
Sherron, it's 8 minutes after the hour. I'm going to steal a couple of minutes of your time here. And this is heavy stuff that we're talking about, but I really want to lighten it up a little bit, okay? Talking about abuse. And I guess back in those days, this happened when I was probably about 6 or 7 years old, long time ago. And I got one licking as a child from my dad. And let me tell you what happened before and after. My father snores like a horse, all right? And Saturday afternoons, my mom usually spends her time in the kitchen preparing bread for Sunday and the next week. My father was, I don't believe this, I don't believe this, I don't believe this. Oh, yeah. One of my cameras just fell right off its rocker. So hold on a minute. I'm gonna try and put it back up or put another camera up. There we go. I don't believe this. It's one of those days. Yeah. Saturday afternoon, while Mom is baking, my father is in bed, falls asleep, and starts snoring like you wouldn't believe. Little 6, 7-year-old child thinks that's funny. So he goes to the kitchen and he gets a hot roll that, hold on a minute, hold on, that has just come out of the oven, goes to my dad's bedroom and puts this roll in his mouth. You're laughing. Hold on, Sherron, hold on. Well, let me tell you, all hell broke loose. We lived in a 2-storied house up there in Grenville. My dad took off like a bullet after me. I ran down the stairs, outside, up the stairs on the side of the house, back to the top story, and my father was on my heels. And I remembered at the back of the house, we had a coconut tree, not one of those tall ones. This one is short, you could climb it, okay? And it had a ladder on it, so that when my brother and I wanted to pick coconuts, we would go up on the ladder and, you know, pick coconuts. So I figured, George, up the ladder you go. I went up the ladder, onto the coconut tree. My father was on my heels after me. So I went out on a branch and I swung to the ground. And when I got down, my father was up there on the coconut tree. And I knew that he couldn't climb either. So I took the ladder away. So now my father is up there, can't get down. There was some men doing some travel work in the road nearby. And Dad called out to them, catch him! Sherron, They caught me. And my father unleashed on me. You can't blame him. You can't blame him. You burn the man out, you leave him stuck up a coconut tree, come on. You can't blame the guy. He put some blows on my behind and on my back. The marks were there. But Sherron, you know what? When he was finished, Dad hugged me, told me how sorry he was, and how much he loved me. Sherron, I will never forget that for as long as I live. Yeah.
That's because, one, you were traumatized. I mean, what you did was what any little boy would do. I would call that a practical joke. And then again, you got beaten in anger.
Yeah.
What is right about that?
And that's where a lot of damage is done, when they do it in anger.
Look at your age and you still remember it. And I'm sure right now, if you're really honest about it, you're feeling that flash right now on your back.
And my behind.
But you see, and that could never be right. My father never, ever, ever hit me. But my mother was a disciplinarian, and she would skin you. When she grabbed that belt, we had a belt called behavior. And one of those boys got rid of behavior, and she had a belt that was given to her by a fisherman. So that belt name was Mr. John. When you get a lash of behavior or Mr. John, you're in trouble. I mean, you really don't need more than one. And to get beaten in anger. I do not hit my children. But I just have to look at them. Even now, when one of them do something angry, I just either give them the silent treatment, and they know if mommy not talking, she mad.
Yeah.
You don't have to do more than that. And you have to have a relationship with your children. How can you beat the crap out of a child, and then when they get older, you want a relationship with them? Are you crazy?
Yeah.
And I don't care who say what about it, never do me any harm. You're talking nonsense. How do you know how good you would have been without those beatings?
Yeah.
And I don't even want to hear. I will ignore any comments that talk about I get licks and I good. That is crap. Anyway, that is a very sensitive subject for me. I get what we call re-stimulated.
And I can understand that.
Let me not go there.
Dogo day.
But I tell you, all the dogo day. And a teacher the other day hit one of my grandchildren. And when we went to talk to her, had the belly to say that she didn't hit the white kids in the class because she know their parents would complain. So she hit my grandchild and two other black kids in the class. Now I was ready to put some cuff on her. Because if you believe in corporal punishment, you should believe in corporal punishment for everybody. The teacher that hit the child, the parents have a right to hit them back, I find. The ministers that come and lie to you and then they're doing crap, you have a right to go and put a slap on them or cuff them down for lying to you and for doing foolishness and putting the country in a bad position.
Okay, Sherron.
If you believe in corporal punishment, you believe in corporal punishment.
Sherron, I understand you're ticked off, but I will not condone violence in any form. I understand people are ticked off. Pardon? Pardon me?
I said, you get my point? If you don't believe in violence of any kind, then in like manner, they should stop beating up on these children. Parents as well as teachers. As a matter of fact, when I was a teacher, I was told that according to the I don't know if they call it the laws or what of Ministry of Education, a teacher has no right to hit a child. You're supposed to bring the child to the headmaster. I say not even the headmaster should hit my child. call me and let's deal with whatever the situation is.
Margaret says, Sherron, I'm with you. I don't like my skin bun me. She says, that is real reason for me to plan your early demise. Again, guys, I will not advocate violence.
Margaret is a woman after my own heart.
Yeah. And by the way, she's saying about the story I told a little while ago. She says, George, please don't tell stories like that when I'm at work. I'm dying with laughter and tears. All right, Sherron.
It's funny. In my house, that would be considered a practical joke.
Yeah, well, my father didn't think a hot roll in his mouth to be a practical joke. He was ticked off. I would be too. And you know, maybe that's where I got my snoring habits from. I'm sure you remember a few years ago when somebody broke into this apartment where I have the studio here on Woolwich Road. This guy claims that he was 20 to 3 in the morning, I'm sound asleep, and this guy, he's walking by, and I had the door to my balcony. My balcony has a door between the bedroom and the balcony. I had the door open, and he said he heard me snoring, and he was hungry. So he came up, he climbed up on the side of the building onto the second floor, came in, he stole 2 of my cell phones, and he was trying to take the laptop as well, plus $400. When he jumped off, when I caught him, you know, again, I say I don't advocate violence, but when I saw this guy stuffing my laptop into a bag, the words that came from my mouth, you bitch, you're dead. Okay? Again, that was anger, having somebody in my bedroom at 20 to 3 in the morning. And he jumped over the balcony. He broke his wrist, he broke his elbow, he broke his right ankle. I wanted to see him to say, look, I forgive you. While he was in hospital, police would not let me see him in hospital. But when he came out, the police called me to meet with him. And I said, you know, why did you do that? He says, I'm walking by the road and I hear you snoring, so I come and look for something to eat, as if my snoring is an invitation to come feed yourself. You come for something to eat. Why you take my phones? Why you taking my laptop? Why you taking my $400? Oh, by the way, I said, what did you do with my $400? He says, you know, Mr. Grant, I was in a lot of pain. So I went by the pharmacy and get something. And without thinking, that sort of went in one ear and out the ear. I believe the guy. The day of the court case, Sherron, the police gave this man, I think, 3 years in prison. It was his 12th conviction, 11 for breaking and entering, okay? And the policeman said to me right after the case, he said, Mr. Grant, tell me something. When that man tell you that he went to the pharmacy with your $400, what do you think? I said, well, you know, he went to Grenada pharmacies or Gittins. He said, the policeman told me that. He said, Mr. Grant, I used to have respect for you when you ain't as smart as I think you are. I said, Mr. Grant, when that man tell you went to the pharmacy, he walked right across the street from where you live in and buy cocaine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
That's the pharmacy you went to?
That's the Georgie, you're slow. You're slow.
You're too innocent. You're naive. I think you're slow though.
Kipling Francis says, a headmaster beat me for playing in sand and did not beat his son. I beat his son in his presence. Same
Good.
3 strokes I got. He was playing in the sand too. Yeah, Kipling. Yeah, Kipling. That must have been a long time ago. Okay, Sherron girl, we kept these folks here for an hour and 22 minutes, 22 minutes overtime. I hope you're going to be on the mend, and I didn't want you to have to drive down here this morning, so I'm glad you were able to join us by Zoom. But hopefully you'll take your rightful place in that chair behind me there next week.
Yes, I want to start going back to the beach.
When are we going to start that?
Next, like Monday, please God. Or maybe Friday. Friday is a holiday, so maybe I'll start on Friday.
Well, whenever you make your mind up, give me a call, because to tell you the honest truth, I miss it, eh? I really miss it.
Yeah, and that would be good for your knees as well.
Yeah? I hope you're right.
Yeah, good. Water therapy is good. Even if you're just going to water and soak, that's good for you.
I hope you have a point there, because let me tell you something, eh? Apparently, I'm finding out that I have parts of my anatomy that I didn't even know existed. Apparently, when you get to my age and you get such a heavy fall, I'm 220 pounds, right? When you fall, when 220 pounds go crashing, a lot of things in a lot of places get shaken up. And so, I mean, I have a shoulder problem now from this. I have 2 knee problems, At least the one that has recovered really nicely, my right cheekbone went smash into the pavement. But thankfully, I'm okay.
All right, my dear.
Thanks a lot for joining us, my dear friend. And we shall see thee again next week.
All right.
All right?
Take good care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
There she goes, Lady Sherron. Oh boy, always a treat having her on board here with us. And just before I take my break, I want to remind you guys that on Sunday we have a special feature coming your way. You're going to be hearing some of the voices of the revolution. We've been talking with a number of people who were involved, and I still have a few more to talk to about the revolution. And we're going to package that into maybe about an hour and a half feature or so, and we look forward to having you join us next week, so please do. Break time, and we'll come back and wrap it up.
Can I have a chicken lunch, please? Large.
Real nice today.
Mm-mm. I don't want that.
But you just asked for a chicken lunch.
I don't have problem with the lunch. Afraid the container.
What is the problem with it?
These styrofoam containers, they don't good for the environment. They shorten with life.
What foolishness you telling me? So what you want me to use?
Put my food in this.
Where you get that?
At the food fair, where you could get all biodegradable food boxes and disposable food supplies like cups, plates, anything you could think about. Name it, it's there. And they don't harm the environment. Food fair, taking the lead in cleaning up and protecting the environment. Hey, like you take me advice, you get in your biodegradable food supplies.
Well, girl, I supporting who's supporting the environment. That is why I shop in that food fair.
Food fair, where you can fill your baskets without emptying your pockets. Products distributed by Hubbard's agency, Kirani James Boulevard.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try their sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
All right, folks, just in case you're wondering why I'm smiling, it's because it's been a really, really interesting morning. All kinds of stuff's been happening here this morning, including the fact that one of my cameras, the one that I use for the teleprompter, decided to go for a walk. There it is, hanging. It's hanging there right now on a cable. Yeah, everything happens that way. So, as I'm about to read to you today's inspirational word, don't mind if you see me looking over there. Well, that's because that's where the prompter is. No camera there, so I'm not going to appear to be looking into your eyes, but I'm reading. And this passage that I'm going to share with you this morning, I want you to know right off the bat that this is one of the passages from the Holy Scriptures that gives me a lot of my strength, the strength that I need to do and say the things that I do and say. Comes to you from the book of Jeremiah chapter 1, verses 17, 18, and 19. Quote, "Get yourself ready, stand up, and say to them, whatever I command you. Do not be terrified by them, or I will terrify you before them. Today, I have made you a fortified city, an iron pillar, and a bronze wall to stand against the whole land, against the kings of Judah, its officials, its priests, and the people of the land. They will fight against you, but will not overcome you. For I am with you and will rescue you, declares the Lord." Yeah? I mean, how could you be a wimp after hearing those words? How? Now you understand where I get the strength to keep on trucking, do what I do. My dear friends, on that note, we're going to pull the curtain down an hour and a half after we got started. I wish you God's blessings. And by His grace, let's get together tomorrow morning at 9.